Meeting.
Lady of the hour.
All right, I texted Tom.
Ali's better, right?
What does that mean?
Good evening. Hello.
Have a minute to spare.
Assembly. Yes, every
It's been crazy.
Missed you last night.
Oh, thank you.
He was lonely over there.
Yeah, got a ton of space. I was like,
I
wow.
know you got to spread out. Did you see
I know.
the fence down Spring?
I now call to order the special session meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Wednesday, September 5th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. Roll call.
Mayor LaHousas,
Here.
Vice Mayor Banther.
Here.
Commissioner Sieber,
Present.
Commissioner Kikta. Here. Commissioner Carr.
Here.
I'd like to remind everyone that the purpose of this meeting tonight is to get public input regarding fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. The item number one is Resolution 2018-19, tentative adopting the millage rate for tax year 2018. Mr. Hare, if you please review the procedures required by the state law.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Ron Herring, Finance Director. Florida Statute 200.065 sets the procedures for the adoption of the millage rate and budget. The tentative millage rate must be approved before the tentative budget. The tentative millage rate for tax year 2018 is 5.42, the same as last year. The tentative millage rate of 5.42 is 5.04% above the rollback rate of 5.1601. The rollback rate is a rate that would provide the same dollar amount of revenues as the previous year. The increase over the rollback rate is being used for salary benefit increases and operating increases.
Thank you. City Clerk, would you please read the resolution in its entirety?
Resolution 2018-19. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, tentatively adopting the millage rate for tax year 2018. Whereas a public hearing was held on September 5th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. to adopt a tentative millage rate. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, that 1, the ad valorem millage rate for tax year 2018 of the City of Tarpon Springs is hereby tentatively established at 5.4200, a 5.04% increase over the rollback rate of 5.1601. 2, the city staff is hereby directed to notify all pertinent governmental agencies of the provisions hereof as required by law. That is the reading of Resolution 2018-19 in its entirety.
Thank you. We are now going to the public comments on this item. The Vice Chairman of the Budget Advisory Committee is here. You please come.
Marty Peters, 1702 Heritage Oaks Court, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Budget Advisory Committee. I think this was presented to you before, that we support the millage rate, keeping it the same, particularly given all of the uncertainty given the state legislature and their desire to have more control over the local governments rather than allowing their elected officials to make those decisions. So we do support the millage rate. I do have some other recommendations that I'm not sure if you got, but they probably are more appropriate for the next item.
For the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I can't ask for any more public comments. Nobody else is here. Heather? Heather? No? Are there any commission comments? Hear none? Will entertain a motion?
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 2018-20, tentatively adopting the final budget for the fiscal year 2018-2019, and the city clerk will read the resolution in its entirety.
Resolution 2018-20, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, tentatively adopting the budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. whereas a public hearing was held on September 5th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. to adopt a tentative budget. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, that 1, the City of Tarpon Springs annual budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 is hereby tentatively adopted. 2, the city staff is hereby directed to notify all pertinent governmental agencies of the provisions hereof as required by law. That is the reading of Resolution 2018-20 in its entirety.
Thank you. We're going to the public comments.
Again, Marty Peters, 1702 Heritage Oaks Court, and I'm Vice Chair of the Budget Advisory Committee. We had 2 recommendations. I'm not sure if you got them other than through email. So I'd like to go through one of them, which dealt with the salary and classification plan amendments and pay increases for 2019. Let me say overall, we support the budget. And we thought staff had done a nice job at developing the budget. We thought that the input from the Budget Advisory Committee had been adopted in most cases, and some adjustments had been made by the time it got to you, as we have done in the past since the creation of the Budget Advisory Committee. But one of the items was the salary classification plan and amendments and pay increases for 2019. The motion we had was the Budget Advisory Committee supports the salary and classification plan amendments and pay increases for fiscal year 2019 and suggest the addition of other supporting materials to demonstrate appropriateness within the competitive cities in Pinellas. Now, we found clear evidence that, at least based on the recommendations of staff, because we don't really have the expertise to judge some of the things, such as the skills needed for somebody who's dealing with mechanics in Mr. Function's sector, or something like that. But we figured staff was doing a good job at comparing those and comparing them to other positions within Tarpon Springs, and that these were the adjustments that needed to be made. What we recommended is that it be compared to other cities and subdivisions, which we've done in the past, when Commissioner Sieber was on the Budget Advisory Committee, when Mr. Banther was on the Budget Advisory Committee. We go back, Mr. Townsend was on there, Terrapini. And we had taken a look at those types of things, and we had demanded some more evidence to prove it, and we thought that was a better way of convincing the public that we were justified in what was being recommended there. So, I haven't seen, and maybe Ron has some stuff tonight, I haven't seen those additional materials that would compare to some of the other cities and the county to see that we're competitive, but competitive in a reasonable rate, not that we're number one and this is an excuse to raise salaries on the down low, but it's really something that's needed to keep us competitive throughout the county and with other cities and subdivisions. And we said, this might be a lot to ask for each and every one of those, but it seems to me like we have a lot more reclassifications this time than we have usually had in the past. And I think it would behoove you to recommend that you see that kind of evidence before you, I think the budget is certainly justified. You certainly, that's not a significant part of the budget. But I think in order to decide that all of those salary adjustments are necessary, I would recommend that you get some comparisons. We recommended maybe a page or two just to give you some general information on how it compared instead of having to go to each and every position. Which takes some time, and I think Mr. Licouris had done that in the past when he's had time to do that. And I think you're looking at maybe doing a big study of that next year. But it would, I think, be useful for the public to understand that we are doing it to be competitive, but not superior to everybody else around. So I would recommend that before you get to the next budget hearing, that you get some of that information, at least for some comparisons, something that would be general, maybe a couple of specific positions. The second motion we had was to a raise for the mayor and the Board of Commissioners. that the Budget Advisory Committee recommends a remuneration for mayor and commissioners based on the cost of living increase to be reflected in the fiscal year 2018-19 budget. Now, you've adjusted everybody else's salary, but you really haven't done your own since I've been here. You have not done your own. So we should stay competitive in all positions. I think that's one of the ones that is always brought up in the Budget Advisory Committee when we say, oh, the city manager should get a raise, but certainly he should be paid more than the other people that are underneath him. So that's necessary. But you should be paid on a basis that compares to other subdivisions. And it's a difficult thing to do, I understand, because not everybody is a full-service city. But we've made those kinds of comparisons in the past, and I think it behooves you, again, to study that and adopt one of those ways of developing the COLA. And I suggested that there were a couple of ways to do it. You could do just what the straight COLA was for the last 10 years. You could do it for the last 5 years. You could compare it to the increases that other city commissions have gotten in other cities. There's all sorts of different ways you can compare that, but you ought to be making a reasonable salary so that somebody poor can be a commissioner too, and we won't just have you rich billionaires up there. And those were the comments. I don't know if you have any questions. I'll try and answer those. Might be my opinion more so than the rest of the committee because they're not here, but I would try and distinguish my opinion from theirs if you have any questions. And if not, I'll sit down.
Mr. Peters, thank you for your input. We're now going to the commission comments. Any millionaire wants to speak?
This is about the proposed budget that we had the workshops on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just to reiterate a couple of the topics that I talked about, I know there's 2 items, I believe, that are pending that add up to about $600,000. One is if I believe it's correct, it's the upgraded tanks for the fire department. We may get a grant for that of $300,000. And then there's also the park north of the Anclote River, of the trail extension. And I know there's also $300,000+ allocated for that trail extension, but there's still some pending eagle nests and other items that might not get done. So I would like to see this, at least allocated these funds towards South Spring Boulevard and the rocks. It's a discussion that we've had as a board multiple times, and it's been discussed multiple times, and there's a lot of people and residents within the town that are really frustrated by it. And I think we deserves a respect to put some dollars towards this if we come up with some additional plans. I know Bob has some ideas and he wants to talk to all of us about it individually, but at the same time, we've got to put some dollars behind this, if it's design or whatever it may be, to go with some different ideas outside of the box that we may have not put on paper yet, to really fix this problem that never was vetted fully amongst the commission when it happened initially. So I'm not sure what the thoughts are with the rest of the board, but I do feel it's a safety issue that has been glaring for some time. Second comment from what Mr. Peters said, I do agree. It would be nice to see a couple of these positions. I don't know exactly which ones we want to pick, but I do think that's a good idea when we're looking at the grade changes. I think that's a prudent decision. And then from the COLA standpoint, I'm not against it. I'm not for it. Does it make sense to have some type of cost of living increase for potential future commissioners? Yes, I do think it does make sense, but I'm not going to stand on the hill and say that we have to give ourselves raises. That's not something I'm not really looking to do, but is it something that it does attract potential commissioners in the future of qualified candidates? I think we may want to look at that at some point as well to make sure that we're attracting qualified candidates to sit on the board in the future commissions that represent Tarpon Springs and the residents. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have to agree. I know that we have in the past looked at other positions in surrounding cities, and we have done that a little bit with this budget as far as comparing ourselves to other cities, but I'm not sure that we all got that information with these grades and raises. And I also have supported some type of increase for the board because I see other cities doing that are not full-service cities, and as Commissioner Carr said, to attract good candidates in the future, not only millionaires, as Mr. Peters said, but, I do think that that's something we should look at again, and I know that we lag behind other cities. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Panther.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank Mr. Peters. I think he's the bedrock of the Budget Advisory Committee. He was there when I started there, 7 years ago probably was, and thank you for your service in that. I've always assumed when we look at least when I've seen raises, both on the Budget Advisory Committee and on this commission, it's with the understanding that it's compared to 2 other cities. I'm not talking about us, I'm talking about employees, right? Like with the reclassifications and that we look to be in the middle to high middle, correct?
Yes, and all the reorganization you get, that's taken into consideration.
Okay. So just maybe perhaps in the future, maybe we need to specify that more.
Well, just reminding you, as I told you, I gave you what we've done the last few years when we did the big study, and then we watched where the other cities have grown and raised. You got the document that I gave you after that meeting about what the anticipated, and we're not going to know, but we pretty much know what the anticipated movement and raises of other cities. And I told you, here it is, and we're still right there in line with that. I mean, it's not going to help to take a few salaries or pick, that's not going to help. But like I told you, this year we're still, again, when we made the big change, we were monitoring every year to see if the movement of other cities and stuff are within, and we're right with them in all those years. But that next year when we came to you with a salary, that next year was time to do the full study, which probably takes 2 or 3, the full study based on these salaries when they're finished this year from all the cities. And we come back next year, we bring you the complete analysis. You have the sheet that we're consistent with the other cities this year again. I think the raises were like 3.13. Ours is 3.5, of course, is thing. So we've been consistent every year with the other cities and their movement of ranges and their movement of things. So, but I told you, it's time. It is time. We agree it is time to do the full study in anticipation of next year's budget, and that's what we plan to do.
Right. And I trust you to do that, and that's always been my assumption that it was done in the background. And I'll trust that this board and whoever replaces me in the spring, that y'all will do that next year. As far as the pay raises for us, I know it's popular for the outgoing member, which is me. Talk about that. Here's how I look at it, and I'll go with whatever you all want to do because it doesn't really affect me. But I think we make $8,000. Is that right? About $8,000 or so. And then, but we do get health insurance, and that's huge because we don't offer health insurance to other part-time employees. And though I think we would argue we're not really part-time, we are technically part-time employees. So I think that has to be factored into when we think about our pay, is what we have to pay to get health insurance on our own. People that are self-employed, like myself and Commissioner Sieber, we know the cost of that. So to me, that's always been the big thing that I've been grateful for is the health insurance on here. As far as the pay goes, you got to look. I mean, if you just did a COLA, even back 5 years, you're talking a couple $100. That's not going to attract a poor person to run for office. If this board was serious about, and I mean this when I say it, if this board was serious about that, you're going to have to pay people like $20,000 to $30,000 to get, if you really wanted to have this be like a salaried position that might attract somebody where for all the, what's the right word to say, for all the issues we deal with, they might not deem $8,000 plus health insurance enough. And I don't think that's feasible to double, triple our pay. I don't think a COLA is really going to make a difference in who runs for office. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion. So if y'all want to talk about attracting candidates based off money, which I don't think that's why people run, but nonetheless, it's a fact that we have to consider in the time we give. You're going to have to really at least double or triple it, and I don't think anybody on this board would do that. But I would yield to my colleagues for that because this doesn't really affect me. So thank you.
Could I make a comment, Mayor? Yeah, I agree. Doubling, tripling is a little ridiculous. But along with the study of what other cities are doing with their employees and their pay raises and their grades. The same as for commissioners and mayors. I know that they have raised theirs, but so that would be, the thing to do as well, and see, again, where we stand compared to other cities who also get health insurance, but are not necessarily for full service, so.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. Lickford, do you remember, I thought we did a
Yes.
study like that not long ago,
2 years ago.
and I think we were comparable to the other cities, am I right?
The former mayor, David Archie, as he was going out, made that request. Obvious, he explained the same thing you did. He was going out, so he's not affected by it. He made that request, and we did that, and we are in line. And the study showed we were in line. And I don't know of commissions since that time he did it. I don't know that they've changed. And that's not to say, because I know I've talked to some of you about the issue. That's not to say that the simple. I've told some of you the simplest way is like you do myself and the clerk. The 3% average for employee, just to do 3% on there. Of course, 3%, $8,000. What some of you have told me is it's not worth. It's not worth the people on the camera and stuff. That 3% is not worth it and stuff. But we could do it again. But when we did that study and brought it back, and surprisingly, that Dunedin was still low and brought it down. Some other ones did, which would have been when he left office. So 2 years ago, we did do that study, and we were right there in line with the average of the cities. Now, of course, we can do that again, and we would do that again in the next one and stuff. But I don't think you're gonna find, if you do the averages, you're not gonna.
And that was
You're not
2
gonna
years
find it.
ago, right?
It was when
4 years
when the
ago?
mayor was going. When the mayor was it was when the mayor was going. So it would have been September before he went
3
out.
years.
So it would have been December before.
And since the 3 years, I know Oldsmar and Dunedin have given themselves raises. Not that, I support it either way, but they have given themselves raises. They get cell phones, they get what we get. Well, sometimes I would rather have a city cell phone than my own cell phone.
Track that stuff. Trust me.
So, because whatever we do on our cell phone is public record anyway, so, but.
And it'd be real fast to get by next meeting, if that's the.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I'm just letting you know. So things have changed since this came up before. There were some changes. Oldsmar's kind of slipped it in.
I think it's other things. It's not definitive. When we were asked to look at salary and stuff, I don't think it's definitively in salary. It may be in some things like phones and that sort of thing.
They got an increase. Was it to 14,000 or something?
Dunedin went up to 12.5 last year, and I think 15 for their mayor.
So, yeah, it has changed. But just, I'm sorry. Is it my turn?
Oh, that's okay, no, go ahead.
No, just so you know, things changed since that was looked at last. And that's what we heard, because we've gone to some conventions, whatever, some city things, and they were telling us, but they kind of slipped it in. I don't know how they did it, but if we ever thought about giving an increase to the commission and the mayor, there should be, it should be a certain amount per year, or maybe is it in there? Is it in our charter or anything? So it's not part of the charter.
No.
Okay, I mean something where it's consistent with other raises within the city. I don't know, but there needs to be some sort of consistency, possibly. Doesn't matter to me either way.
You're looking for some kind of mechanism, so automatically it follows that every budget. Is that what you're looking for?
Right. I think that's the only fair way to do it if it was to be done. See how Oldsmar and Dunedin did it. I'm not sure, but like you said, COLA, how much is that going to be? $200 more a year?
It's not worth the discussion.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. But I would suggest looking into it, because I know I did call Mark about when we were given these increases for the pay grades, and I was told, and you said you were under the impression that there was some studies done or whatever, and I was told that it was, because I questioned it as well. But so there was some they're keeping up with what the other cities are doing with pay grades. So I think we're very comparable, and I think that for our employees, and we're not at the top of the scale. I think we're right in the middle, and so it's not like they're just pulling numbers from anywhere. They have been keeping up with it. There's been some studies done, but I know Mark had mentioned that they're going to do a more extensive one for next year. But I know they've been
Based
keeping
on you,
up.
it'd be real easy to get, and probably get that in a couple of days.
Oh, I'm talking about us. I mean for
Oh, yeah.
for the
Okay.
employees. So What was the other question Marty had? Thank you for bringing this up, Marty. I appreciate it. The pay grades for the employees. Yeah, like I said, I know that we've had somebody in staff that's been keeping up with the other cities, so I think we're comparable. And like I said, I don't think numbers were just pulled from anywhere. I would hope not, but I know they weren't because, like I said, I confirmed that. But and again, if you decide to give raises for commission and the mayor, just see how the other cities did it before we make that commitment. And is it really?
Yeah. Census already checked a couple, 3 years ago. It wasn't worth it doing. So
I
anyway.
get that, Liza. I can get that for you, and then you can decide if you want to bring it up at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Or you can set up a vehicle for next year or a year after. You finished?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Peters, thank you for being here tonight. And please convey my thanks to the all the members of the Budget Advisory Committee. You guys make our life a lot easier. We don't have to look every item that we used to. Now it works so much easier for us, and you will see a finished product. So we want to thank you for that. For the 2 items that you brought up to us, it's very good ideas, and in regards to the employees, I discussed that with Mark at the very beginning, so it makes me feel comfortable that we are comparable. We're looking comparable with the other cities, but also we concentrate to give raises to the people with the low wages and bring them up so they have a decent paycheck, which I support that very much. You can motivate a person all you want, but they have to be able to go to Publix and get groceries. So I thought that was the right thing to do. In regards to raise for the mayor and the city commissioners, since it was done about 3 years ago, and I agree with my colleague. Let's take a look and see if it's worth it doing it or not. Mr. Licorice, I appreciate that the budget this year is a very good budget, and I like the transparency that we have. The budget is on the website, so a lot of people looking at it, they see what's what the budget is. I received a couple of phone calls. People ask me questions on that, so I thought that was pretty nice that we're doing that. I'm glad that we're able to provide the benefits to the employees, the good health insurance, dental, and retirement, as we discussed last night. I thought it's great that we're doing that. And again, given the 0.35% increase average, because some people got more, some people got less. I thought that was pretty nice. Mr. Licorice, I want to put a bug in your ear that for next year, we need to start thinking about having a senior center. We need to have a focal point for the seniors. 30% of our population is seniors, so we need to have a center for them to be able to socialize and get the activities there. I think just about every city has that senior center. I know Dunedin has a huge one on Douglas Avenue, and they're using that a lot. Last week I was there. They invited me to go there to take a look at that. I thought that was pretty nice. I think it's time for Tarpon Springs to get something like that. You and I discussed about a year or so ago that a property right next to the community center is available for that. But it's something that we can look next year. Okay. Yes.
I have a quick question. I meant to ask Commissioner Carr. Explain to me about the rocks around Spring Bayou. What?
It's the granite. Okay, to respond, Mayor.
Go ahead.
The granite boulders that were put from the boat ramp to the Martin Luther King Bridge, and then around part of Whitcomb Bayou along Whitcomb Boulevard, I believe, just before Carolina.
Right.
There's lack of sidewalks. It's a narrow road, and there's really no great area that's safe for pedestrians or people to exercise along that area that connects to Craig Park for the amount of people that use that area, right? So that was one of those. We've had a couple of topics on the board over the past year and a half since I joined the board about it. I don't know where we're at. I know initially we looked at a one-way road, and there's a survey that went out, and I don't think that was a great response from the public. So I think we need to go to the drawing board again to come up with some other ideas that might be out of the box, or maybe it's just a traditional idea. I'm not really sure what it is. But there's an area for improvement for sure. And it's a neat thing because it encourages the recreation still to continue around all the bayous, although people are doing it today. But if you were on a bicycle, or even if you're running or walking down the road and you had two cars drive down the road, it's going to push you right into the rocks because the rocks go up to the curb in most of the spots. So it's just further discussion.
So even if we could just start with the other side of the street and get all the, which we discussed before, all the sidewalks in and connected and walkable, I mean, that's a start.
Yeah, here is, and I know some of you have heard this speech a lot of times, and I'll keep doing it. First of all, those granite rocks are there to stay. You're not going to move them. You're not going to disturb them. You're not going to be able to do it. I've said it definitively, and you can take it to the bank. You can't move them. But we have looked at different things to do, and why the challenge is to budget them is we've got ideas from $150,000 to $2 million, and they're different options. The two that are most viable, there are two viable options, because even when you get the option of a boardwalk or stuff like that, I still tell you they're not going to get permitted, that we have to do a full design. And that doesn't mean just do a little sketch. We have to have a complete engineered design that costs a lot of money. And with that design to go to them, we cannot disturb. It has to be a plan that doesn't disturb any of the granite rocks, because they're not just rocks there. They are embedded deep in the ground, and there's what holds that shoreline together. So anything beyond those two options, we got to spend a lot of money to do complete engineered drawings, and then there's a good chance we're going to be turned down for them. The two viable ones that we talked about was the sidewalk work on the other side, which of course the least expensive. We have to do, the biggest challenge is the right-of-way. What right-of-way do we have? We have to do a right-of-way study, see what right-of-way, and see how they're doing and stuff. And of course the one-way, which was not receptive to the thing. All the other ways have problems. The boardwalks have to have rails. The rails block the vision of the residents to the water. You only got a small stretch to go. So again, Bob Robertson has got all those options and all those estimated costs. There's some we can do, not like we'll get the okay. We start the engineering on there. So if you get with them, let me know. But there's places for the things you can do.
The sidewalks would be the
we could slot them into the, like I said, those things we slot in the budget. The other ones are going to be so long in design and trying to get it permitted, it'll be next year's budget before you have to worry about the major options. If you want to try to do boardwalks or figure out how we're going to sink thing in the ground without disturbing, those are not rocks. Those are a structure to hold the road from falling in. Everybody calls them rocks. They are not. They are designed, they are deep into the ground, and they are for a purpose of how bad that was. Where you see the rock, it was so bad that road was falling in. So,
but like I said, we could start out with across the street with the sidewalks and getting the sidewalks, because there's bits and pieces, and it's not. So, we want to be a walkable community, so that's a great start right there.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I agree with Commissioner Carr and Commissioner Kickner that this is a safety issue, and I know Commissioner Siebert sees that every day.
So get with them. We can put it on an October agenda, and we can talk. That's something. But those can be slotted in. Again, the other ones you don't have to worry about, but it's because the permitting and design and all that stuff, or you don't have to worry about paying those the next year. So the ones that we will be able to do and get into this budget, they would be available to slot into this budget very easily.
Yeah, let's place that on the agenda. But I think it's good to do the option 2, which is the sidewalk on connect the sidewalks, that we have some empty spots there. That way you can actually correct that issue that we got, the safety issue that we have, and then we'll look at the other side and see if that can be done. But first, we need to take care of the safety issue that we have.
Did we get an agenda in October?
Okay.
Everybody
Are you good with that?
see the options and just go and see the options.
One second.
When you're done,
One more thing, and then just, we need to know what's going to cost. That way we have some.
Mr. Robinson's got all those.
That way we
estimates
have
on all
money
of
put into the budget for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We need to do something with South Spring. I've talked to Bob a lot. My idea of the one-way was not popular.
Yeah.
But And the reasons that I had brought the one-way up was because it would reduce the traffic on that street, which, you've said is caving in, so and it floods. But also because we're not only talking pedestrians, we're talking bicyclists, runners, boats coming from the ramp, 2 cars coming. A lot of times now I see boat trailers parked on South Spring, on people's lawns. And that's just, not acceptable, especially if you have bicyclists and runners on the street. There was an accident, I guess late last night on South Spring, took out a fence. So it is dangerous, and we have to do something about it. So we definitely need to start.
And again, I think a lot of the unpopularness is the change. It's just the change stuff. That may be one of those projects that once you get it done and people see it working, but again, it's a drastic change. And I think the change is what, most of the people heard, but really that's one of the most viable ideas to try to do something there.
I heard it would reduce our houses. I don't see how less traffic would have an impact on our houses. But anyway, so that was, to me, a logical way to go about it from MLK to Banana. But let's continue to work on it.
Commissioner Carr, you okay with that?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think it's a start, right? I think it's a start.
Yeah.
It really, you brought up a good point, is when you even come from Spring Boulevard from the top of the bayou at Tarpon Ave and you work your way towards Craig Park, it's a really narrow spot already. And pretty much, I drive it often on my way home. So I drive a truck, and if you come across somebody that's even in a car, it's tight. And then if they have a boat trailer, it's also even tighter. And you ultimately are going by at a crawl, which it's nice that you're not speeding down the roads, but at the same time, it's an issue that to be proactive and to take the stand, it's going to cost some money. Yes, it's going to cost some money. But how much of an impact can it have for our community is, I think, well worth it. And also to be able to extend from Craig Park, then around the bayous, and at some point, hopefully out to the beaches, is another thing that would be a great bonus for the residents and the people that visit the area as well. But the sidewalk, just connecting the sidewalks on the east side would be the good start. I agree. And then also, I know if we're still looking at not spending all the money then in that area, I would imagine it wouldn't cost $600,000 to do the sidewalks to connect them. But I know we did have some discussions about the Craig Park parking for the boat trailers with vehicles and the shuffleboard court. So maybe that could fall into that same category, and potentially look at a kayak launch that's safer, or a paddleboard launch that's not and the boat ramp for the residents that want to paddleboard in that area too, or kayak. So I'm just looking for a backup to those funds, because it sounded like in the initial discussion that we either will get a grant to cover the cost of one, and then the other one we might not be doing this year. So I think to have a backup of additional projects ready to go would be a good thing to have. So, thanks.
Yep.
Any other comment? I need a motion
Second.
and roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banther?
Yes.
Mayor LaHousas?
Yes. Well, that concludes the special session agenda, and it's adjourned at 7:07. And we're now going to the Community Development Agency meeting. I now call to order the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Tarpon Springs on Wednesday, September 5th, 2018 at 7:08 p.m. And roll call, please.
Chair LaHousas?
Here?
Vice Chair Banther?
Here.
Commissioner Sieber,
Here.
Commissioner Kikta?
Here.
Commissioner Carr?
Here.
Purpose of tonight's meeting is to get public input regarding the fiscal year 2018-2019 CNRA meeting budget. Item number 1 is the resolution 2018-3, tentative adopting the final budget for the fiscal year 2018-2019. Mr. Harry, if you please read the procedures that is required by the law.
Mayor Commissioners, the tentative CRA budget it starts on page 199 of the detailed budget report. I sent out copies of it to you all today, but the tentative CRA budget for fiscal year 2019 is $501,493, an increase of $68,836 or 15.9% over the adopted budget for fiscal year 2018. The majority of the increase is due to the increase in property values at 10.29%. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Thank you. City Clerk, if you please read the resolution.
Resolution 2018-03, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, tentatively adopting the budget for fiscal year 2018-2019. Whereas a public hearing was held on September 5th, 2018, at 6:30 p.m. to adopt a tentative budget. Now therefore be it resolved by the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, that Section 1, the Community Redevelopment Agency's annual budget for fiscal year 2018-2019 is hereby tentatively adopted. Section 2, the city staff is hereby directed to notify all pertinent governmental agencies of the provisions hereof as required by law. That is the reading of Resolution 2018-03 in its entirety.
Are there any public comments on this item? Mr. Peters, you're the only one here.
Maybe we'll make your time here worth it.
Marty Peters, 1702 Heritage Oaks Court, Tarpon Springs, and I'm speaking as an individual. It seems to me that the CRA spent an awful lot of money this past year and has some budgeted this current year coming up, dealing with the ramifications involving that Sun Bay Motel. And I think we spent altogether around $1 million, give or take, and for everything that was involved with that and the property adjacent to it. I was wondering if we had a plan yet for what we were going to do. And I was also wondering, since one of the great arguments I heard from the people in the audience, as well as some other people that were speaking in favor of it, was that it would reduce crime. So I was wondering if we have any crime statistics that would verify a reduction in crime after we have torn that building down. And that's just questions to go with that. And if you don't like the answers to those questions, you might want to change some of the budgeting that you have coming up this year.
Thank you. Are there any commission comments?
I've got some. Just a couple comments within the CRA district. Again, the CRA district is probably the most traveled area of tourism as well in Tarpon Springs. So I do want to encourage that we continue the beautification efforts along Pinellas Avenue and Tarpon Avenue and towards the Sponge Docks as well too. Something that we do want to look at is the parking situations in downtown. It's nice to see the $60K increase for this year due to the property values in the CRA budget. At some point, we're going to need to look at some parking alternatives. I know I'm excited that the city just opened up the new ring parking lot, but there's still a need for additional parking towards the library and some other areas around downtown. And I'll put it out there, a parking garage would be nice. I know it's going to cost a significant amount of money, but it's something at least to start planning and looking at to see if it's viable to where we can maybe do a mixed use of a parking garage of, we'll just leave it at that. And then the second thing that I think it would be a good idea for the CRA to look at is some type of an additional incentive for redevelopment within the CRA district. We have the grants currently today for updating the facades and a restaurant grant, I believe, which are great. I could tell it was very successful, and I think it will be successful for some of these buildings that are within the district. What we really should be targeting as the board is large projects. I believe the old Winn-Dixie building on Mears and Ultra 19, Pinellas Avenue, is within the CRA district. That's an area that needs to be redeveloped pretty badly. This down by the top of the bayou, which Mr. Peters is talking about in this area, there's just a couple areas that are in need of redevelopment as well. There's some areas along Tarpon Avenue and other parts within the CRA district that need to be redeveloped just because there's open land or there's buildings that are in poor shape, et cetera. So we really should probably look at some type of incentive if it's reducing impact fees somehow, or if it's an additional grant if a developer comes in and commits to spending X amount of dollars that the city will, or the CRA, not the city, will pay X amount of dollars of grant in that commitment as well. And just a couple areas for encouraging additional growth within the CRA district. Thanks.
No comments. I agree, Commissioner Carr.
Commissioner Kik,
Comments?
Vice Mayor.
I'll be very quick. If we could, and I mean to ask this later on in the year, just to have either a Trill or Chief do an update on the crime in the area for us in the same manner they did.
Yeah,
before.
that's already planned with enough
figured
time.
Such. And also, I don't have to be too versed in the CRA boundary line. I'm not sure how the boundaries are set, but if there's ever an opportunity to extend it, I would say east on Tarpon Avenue, that would be beneficial. And as you know, my family bought a lot of property between Diston and Dora, and since 2014 or 2013, we've put a lot of money into fixing up those offices there, and we sold 2 of them, and that is the gateway into Tarpon Springs. People drive through East Tarpon Avenue before they get to the downtown area. So I think if the opportunity ever arises to extend the boundary east and thus to provide grants to offices and firms on East Tarpon Avenue, I think it might help make a better, as we say, gateway into downtown. I don't know what that involves, but if it ever arises, that would be a great opportunity. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. LaCourse, wonder if you remember, once we tried to extend the CRA and down at the Sponge Duck
And the
Store,
answer was no.
what was the process on that?
That was easy and quick. No, you're gonna have your challenges.
I mean,
your challenges on the boards are going to make sure CRA stay. Your challenges are there are a lot of people moving to do away with them. The challenge was with that one and the stuff is to stop this. Is no more CRAs. There's too much of it going, and that's why we couldn't get that in there. You're going to see that push. I'm predicting that some of you on here in the future push is not going to be added. Which again, East Tarpon Avenue is great to expand it more in the Sponge Deck. That would be great to do, but I think our fight's going to be for the ones we have not going away, because I don't think.
I mean, I was asking about the process because Vice Mayor Panther, he had a good point that East Tarpon needs to be included, and it makes sense. So I was just wondering, what is the process of going through?
Again, that's something we need at a workshop or at somewhere else to go through. All that's too long and lengthy for a budget discussion.
But they're being voted out these days.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So that may be something for a future addenda or a future workshop.
Okay. Well, I support the idea that Commissioner Carr has about we need more parking. I know we just finished up the ring, and I think we just opened it up for the public a week or so ago. But we need to start thinking about the future. One of the things we talked about, it was the parking garage a long time ago. But the longer we wait, the worse it's going to get, the harder it is to going to find the property that we're going to need. So we need to start looking for that.
We've been.
So we got to.
If you see a piece of land along there that someone owns or has changed hands, we've asked about, including some recently changed of hands ones. We've asked, and there's just, as you know, I don't want to name places out here and stuff, but you know where the library is, and you know some areas around and stuff. Those, all those would be viable to do if there's people willing to sell. So we're watching those.
The parking lot behind the train depot, didn't we look at that once?
What?
The parking lot behind the train depot? Did we look at that as being a multi-level?
Behind where?
The train depot.
I think the problem was, we never engineered out that it might not be big enough to, but if, for instance, the Latour land or some of that was involved, or even if that might be a surface lot, or again, there's other places along there, if you think of some of the buildings next to the library stuff, are some for either some surface lands around there.
So what's the street, that's still Lemon, yeah, and then I know the city had owned a big lot back there, and it's all empty now, I see. We used to have put store, it's across from the Silver King, close to the Silver King. And we used to store a lot of equipment there, but I see it all cleaned out now.
Let's see.
Is that Lemon?
Yeah, but you mean across the street from Silver King? That's not ours.
No, that's never
That's
been
never
ours.
ours.
That was Smirla's parking years ago.
Across the street?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because that would be ideal.
That, yeah.
That's Smurla?
It was.
Okay. I thought we owned it because we had a lot of, there was a lot of city or,
I think we had some agreement to be able to store stuff out there.
yeah,
but it
because it's all
wasn't ours.
gone now, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think a while ago we had to get all that off there.
Okay.
It was a pretty long time ago we had to remove all that. But that's, that's something we have been looking for. And if pieces of land come available, we'll look at that option.
What about the one that's on the corner of Tarpon, next to the barbecue place, KCQ, that's been for sale forever? Lindy Ackles owns, I think.
The problem is when you do the design and try to do a store, you'd have maybe you'd have no parking spaces.
Okay.
It wouldn't be worth
Wouldn't be worth it.
You couldn't.
That's too small.
Go look and see all we had to do and how many spaces we lost on that big. We lost a ton of spaces for various permitting reasons and stuff. That's the problem. You got to do other things than a piece of land. But that was one we had looked at to do that. But we will keep looking.
You too, Vice Mayor. Stop looking.
Listen,
You're in real estate, man.
April, we'll talk to you in April.
Any other comments?
parking is not my area of expertise in real
So I
estate.
was just going to say, and get us a good deal while you're at it.
Cut your commission.
No comment.
Any other comment?
No.
Well, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Carr?
Yes.
Commissioner Kikta?
Yes.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Vice Chair Banther? Chair LaHousas?
Yes, that concludes the agenda, and it's adjourned at 7:21 p.m.
If 5 and 6 of you
Jumping up.
made it all the way through. It's every year.
Every year I do it. I jump.
This is your last. This is your last year.
Every year I do it.
This was your last year.
We're trying to give you some work.
Listen,